Hey, what's up, guys? It's your fitness trainer, Joey, and I am deciding to strike while the iron is hot, like all good people before, and I've decided to add to my channel a podcast. This will be the Crossbar Podcast. I'll try and get 1 or 2 episodes of this out every week. So, to start off for the first one, let's just go over some things. So, the international break is now over. We've got a few little international news and little tidbits here, so let's go ahead and begin with an interesting story coming out of South America. If you haven't read this already yet, Chile have failed to qualify, finishing 6th in the overall group, while 5th place in South America gets you into one of the FIFA World Cup qualifying spots. But the little tidbit that's out there that some people might not know is that Chile actually doomed themselves out of qualifying for the World Cup. So, how does this work? Let me take you back to a simpler time. September of 2016, during some FIFA World Cup qualifying. The Copa Centenario had officially been terminated. Chile had won yet again, defeating Argentina in the finals on PKs yet again. And Chile were on top of the world, being the best from South America, and now they're in for some South American World Cup qualifiers. Should be a piece of cake, right? Well, not exactly. Chile ended up getting a 0-0 draw with the perennial powerhouses of South America, known as Bolivia, who have qualified for the World Cup, maybe? I haven't even looked that up. But outside of that, Bolivia also played Peru and handed them a nice whooping of a 2-0 win. But Chile could not stand to have being on top of the world, winning the Copa America and Copa Centenario, and tying Bolivia, who sat 9th or 10th this time around out of the 10 qualifying teams from South America, and found out a little bit of tidbit information from Bolivia that Nelson Cabrera, a Paraguay-born defender who played for the Paraguay national team, had suited up and played for Bolivia. So, using this knowledge, Chile appealed to FIFA, who granted their request to forfeit these 2 games from Bolivia. So, Chile, instead of getting the 1 point that they got from tying Bolivia, ended up adding 2 extra points onto theirs, and assisted Peru in turning their 2-0 loss into a 3-0 win, gaining them 3 points. So, where do we go from there? We fast forward to this weekend, and Chile missing out on the World Cup playoffs by goal differential to Peru. They are tied on points and lose out on goal differential. Now, had they kept their mouths shut here, Chile would be 1 point ahead of Peru, so the goal differential wouldn't have mattered. Oh, talk about shooting yourself in the foot and then some. Oh, good Lord. Whoever decided to go with this is probably just... well, it's South America, so I can't say he's kicking himself. It's probably a lot worse, but this should be a lesson for everyone out there. You're on your own. You need to look out for your own country's best interests here, and Peru gaining huge benefit. I don't even think Peru put forth any complaint losing 2-0 to Bolivia about Nelson Cabrera. It was Chile who were the ones who put forth the complaint, and granted Peru 3 extra points while Chile only got 2, bringing Peru up to this point here. And now Chile, who won the Copa America, who won the Copa Centenario, who have been dominant in South America, this is their golden generation, and their golden generation will miss out on the World Cup. Now, if you don't remember, 2014 was the other time Chile participated in the World Cup and did well, and they were a few centimeters off from knocking out Brazil in the round of 16. They were a PK away from it as well. That's how good Chile are, and now they're not even in the World Cup because they couldn't just take a little bit of humility and just take a 0-0 draw against Bolivia. They had to go forth and find this, and now instead of taking the humility of a 0-0 draw with Bolivia, they're going to be even more humiliated by sitting at home and watching the World Cup. Speaking of people sitting at home watching the World Cup, a lot of U.S. fans are trying to get the Panama-Costa Rica game replayed thanks to the phantom first goal for Panama. They're looking into potentially replaying that as a South Africa versus Senegal game from November 16, resulting in a 2-1 victory for South Africa, is being replayed after clear referee biased or game tampering from the Ghanaian referee, who is banned from life from the sport, from FIFA, and the game will have to be replayed this upcoming November international break. So the U.S. fans, I don't know if the U.S. Soccer Federation will put forth a complaint about that to have the game replayed, but I would say to all U.S. fans who are deluding themselves into thinking this will happen, get to reality. FIFA are not fans of the U.S. team. They're not fans of the U.S. soccer organization unless they can make money off of them. Now, they could potentially see this as making money off of them by having the U.S. in the World Cup, but as, you know, one of the most corrupt and criminal members of Trinidad, who should be arrested and will be arrested for money laundering the second he leaves Trinidad and Tobago, Jack Warner put, he was extremely happy and nobody in CONCACAF likes the United States. So, if by some chance FIFA, who by the way did not issue a replay on France versus Ireland in 2010 for the Henry handball that we all remember, if they're not going to put that in, that replay there, why are they going to put replays for Panama versus Costa Rica? And second of all, with that replay in there, do you think Costa Rica is going to try and beat Panama or tie Panama? Not likely. I think Panama comes out of that with an even bigger victory. I think Costa Rica throws out their U17 Costa Rican national team, gives them all experience there and tells them, you don't have to win. And then just lets it go there, and Panama wins 7-0 or something ridiculous like that. So don't put your hopes on the World Cup, on the U.S. getting to the World Cup through Panama versus Costa Rica. Accept the fact that the U.S. is out, and just move on with what we need to do. All right? So now with that all the way, let's look at the current teams that are qualified for the World Cup. From Africa, 2 out of their 5 teams are officially qualified. The Pharaohs of Egypt have finally taken all the talent that they have there and decided they want to play in the World Cup. Maybe they'll take an international game in an international tournament seriously, since all they seem to be doing in there is taking their the club soccer very seriously. Alongside that, we have the Princes of Nigeria, who took a break from scamming people to go ahead and decide to qualify very confidently. Nigeria seem to just constantly be in every World Cup. They've been able to produce some pretty solid talent on the international stage. Not breakout, standout, golden generation, but just solid talent throughout. So both of those teams are in there. From Asia, 4 out of their 4.5 teams have qualified. We have the Iranians, Japan, South Korea, and Saudi Arabia all qualifying. So expect some real sparks to fly with that, with Iran and Saudi Arabia meeting up in Russia for a game of soccer. I'm sure that won't turn political in the slightest. From Europe, 10 out of their 14 qualified. We've got the Belgium still back in there with their golden generation. England, the quarterfinal exit specialists. France, who will no doubt disappoint us again with a talented roster. Germany, who seem to be bringing another golden generation to make this tournament less fun. The complete underdogs of the Vikings from Iceland with their 235,000 population island. doing what most countries can't seem to do and qualify for the World Cup. We got Lewandowski carrying Poland through here. Portugal looking to tie a bunch of results and maybe try to win the World Cup like they did in Euro 2016. Russia defaulted their way into the World Cup. Well done on them. Great effort. Serbia took out a pretty competitive group and won it out. And Spain still showing that dominance in Europe after all these years of falling apart. From CONCACAF, 3 out of 3.5 teams are qualified here. We got Costa Rica, Mexico, and Panama. 2 of those teams are pretty obvious, and I could have told you that beforehand. From South America, we have 4 out of our 4.5 teams. We've got Argentina, who can't seem to realize that Messi isn't the problem with their national team. It's the 10 guys around him that can't seem to do it. Brazil, who were one of the first teams to qualify, but unfortunately Russia qualified just before them, so it's time to fire their coach and get a new one. We've got Colombia in there and the golden generation of Uruguay. Colombia looking pretty solid, especially with the resurgence of Falcao back in France. In the playoffs in Europe, we have Sweden, Switzerland, Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland. Can't wait and see if they match up. Irish Civil War Part 2. Those are the best movies. Denmark, Slovakia, Italy, Greece, and Croatia. Notable misses from the European teams here. We've got Ukraine and Turkey from Group I, knocked out by Iceland of all people and Croatia. Now this is very interesting indeed because Turkey seemed to have a lot of solid talent, either in their Turkish leagues at their top teams, or they tend to go to Germany and some other countries in Europe and do pretty solidly there. You have the likes of Arda Turan. You've got that young Emre Mor at Dortmund. So they do have a lot of talent for there. And they were in a group that they should have at least gotten into the playoffs, if not outright won it. Ukraine, they have a couple solid teams that in Ukrainian club football that get into the UEFA Champions League and do decently well in there. So it's definitely a surprise to see them completely knocked out. But Iceland seemed to just have some golden generation going on right now. And Croatia always has some solid talent, so not too surprised to see there. Scotland knocked out of Group F. They were knocked out by Slovakia and England. England, no surprise there. Slovakia, yeah, I probably would have taken them over Scotland. Scotland has a terrible problem where they don't seem to have much creativity. There's a lot of things that are wrong with Scotland. Perhaps I'll make a video about it if you guys are interested about that. Next up from Group D, Wales and Austria were knocked out by the Republic of Ireland and Serbia. Wales is a definite miss because this is, again, another one of those golden generations. A lot of these small countries, pop up with golden generations in Wales. You have the likes of Aaron Ramsey. I'm forgetting his name. There's a defensive midfielder who used to play, I think he still plays for Liverpool. He went out injured in their final game against Northern Ireland, and obviously you have Gareth Bale, but they had a great run in Euro 2016 making the semifinals, so to see him not even in the playoffs is definitely a miss. And then you have the likes of Austria, who just have a lot of players who are littered through the Austrian Bundesliga and the German Bundesliga, missing out, and Austria finished 4th and weren't even close for qualification there. Republic of Ireland are always a solid team, and then you've got the likes of Serbia, who seem to rebound every once in a while. From Group C, the Czech Republic were knocked out by Northern Ireland and Germany. This is definitely a huge step down. 10 years ago, this would be unheard of. The Czech Republic were a dominant force, one of the top 10 countries in the world, and within 10 years, they managed to go from one of the best to one of the worst. And speaking of one of the best to one of the worsts, third place finishers at the 2014 World Cup and finalists at the 2010 World Cup, Netherlands, were knocked from Group A by Sweden and France. This comes as a actually huge... It shouldn't come as a huge shock, but for those who are not paying attention, it's a definite huge shock. Sweden do have some talent on their roster, but they shouldn't have the talent of the Netherlands. France is obviously just loaded with talent, and they're going to no doubt disappoint in the World Cup by just falling short of what they should actually do. But Holland is going through an even worse crisis right now than the U.S. is as far as players coming through in development. They have a lot of guys on their old guard, and the new guard is just not up to the same level that you expect from Holland. The Eredivisie is a very slow. A lot of players coming out of the Eredivisie are struggling at top teams, which is something that never happened before. It's been a long time, and it seems Johan Cruyff is he passed away far too soon for us, because the Holland needs something to change in order to get back onto the top. So other playoffs for FIFA, Honduras will be taking on Australia. Australia knocked off Syria in a 3-2 aggregate, 2-leg there. Unfortunate to see Syria knocked out. They had a nice little underdog World Cup qualifying, but Australia's old guard still managed to take a win there. I couldn't tell you a prediction, honestly, between Honduras and Australia. Honduras are they never seem like a very solid team. But they do manage to make the World Cup and do okay. And Australia's old guard, I don't know anything about Australia's new guard coming in. I know their old guard is very old. Tim Cahill is the most notable name that I can think of right now from Australia that I could name off the top of my head. I do know that they've recently won an Asian Cup. I believe they hosted it and they won it, so it's not like they're not talented, and obviously they're still playing for a World Cup playoff spot, and they've been going to World Cups since 2006. So for them to be a pushover, I don't see it happening. And then in the other game, it's New Zealand versus Peru. New Zealand, it's nice that you made it this far yet again, but you know, a team that comes out of that South America qualifiers and has 2 legs against New Zealand, I would be absolutely shocked if we see New Zealand over Peru in the World Cup coming up. So the other one that's important to talk about here is Africa. Since Africa has 5 groups who play round robin, there's 4 teams in each of these 5 groups, and the winner of the groups gets to go in, since Africa has 5 spots that they can go in. There's one more round of games left for qualifying, which will take place in November. Nigeria and Egypt simply cannot be caught. In the other groups, Senegal has a 2-point advantage over Burkina Faso. Morocco has a 1-point advantage over the Ivory Coast, and Tunisia have a 3-point advantage over the DR Congo. Notable teams from here eliminated from Africa. We got South Africa eliminated, hosts of the 2010 World Cup, not even participating anymore. This is the second World Cup in a row that they missed out on. Ghana, the thorn to the U.S.'s side from 2006 to 2010, finally defeated in 2014 when they seemed to have that World Cup meltdown. Their meltdown from the World Cup seems to continue, as all the talent that Ghana used to have and used to produce is simply not there anymore, and they have been completely eliminated. And it's not like they were in second place; they were third or fourth in their group. Cameroon, less talented version of Ghana, is going through the same problem, and then Algeria are also eliminated from group play, and that's definitely a weird one because Algeria tend to produce a lot of solid talent that goes into the French leagues and does notable there. You may remember Mahrez from Leicester City's incredible title run. He is Algerian. He plays for the Algerian national team as well. They have a few other ones in there as well, and you would think they'd be able to qualify from the Africans, or at least be in contention going into the final week, but they're not. So, some notable fixtures for this final round. Tunisia and the DR Congo do not play. Tunisia has the 3-point advantage, but a tie from either of the teams put Tunisia through, although Tunisia only has a +2 goal differential on their side, so theoretically a win for the DR Congo and a loss for Tunisia will at minimum put them tied on goal differential as well. I don't know where the tiebreakers go from there, so that should still be a nervous final day for Tunisia, but they simply need to tie their game and they are through. So of the three teams that have notable games coming in the final fixtures for Africa, they should be the most relaxed. Senegal and Burkina Faso do not play. Senegal has a +4 goal differential, but a tie does not guarantee Senegal a spot, since Senegal only has a 2-point advantage over Burkina Faso. A tie on their part and a 5-goal win for Burkina Faso puts them in the World Cup, although I think Senegal should see this one through. And then the big final game that I would actually recommend seeing if you could find this game in there. Morocco, who has a 1-point advantage over the Ivory Coast, travels through to the Ivory Coast to play them on the final day. A draw will put Morocco through, but obviously everything is still there left to play for. So, with that international news out of the way, let's go into just some interesting news that's popped up around here. So, I want to call him a billionaire, obviously a very rich man who likes to throw his money around at sports teams to have little playthings. Robert Kraft is intrigued at the thought of buying a Premier League team. Now, you might remember Robert Kraft as the guy who currently owns an MLS franchise, being the New England Revolution, and has also quoted himself as saying that he doesn't want to spend outrageous money for international talent, and has left New England to go from finalists in the MLS Cup to being mediocre. I don't know if they're still pushing for a playoff spot now this year or not. I have not fully kept up, full disclosure. But a lot of people are looking at that and seeing, all right, we don't need another owner from the U.S. coming in. We don't need them screwing up a Premier League team and thinking, as soon as he buys you, you're going down to the championship and then he's selling you. Well, few things about that. One, you've got Stan Kroenke at Arsenal. Arsenal are a little bit of a business themselves. There's still some problems. They're still not financially able to keep up with some of these, super clubs like Manchester City and Chelsea, who just seem to just shit money in the transfer fees. But they're not at the struggling point where they're making last-ditch efforts to remain relevant, and they're still getting some, the English Premier League money, so they're kind of wisely spending it. But you also have the likes of the Liverpool owners and the Manchester United owners who seem to be making it work. Manchester United now being able to spend a lot of money, reworking some deals there. So Kraft could potentially buy a big-name team, and he throws a little money at it, maybe some other things like that. But the other thing you have to look at with Kraft is, in the U.S., not only does he own the New England Revolution, he also owns the New England Patriots. So spending an insane amount of money to try and promote the New England Revolution while you have the Patriots over there who are still in their very last depths of their little dynasty, I'm guessing he is going to make a little bit more money if people are more interested in the New England Patriots versus the New England Revolution. So I'm cautiously optimistic about Mr. Kraft owning a Premier League team. I think if he gets into the right spot and realizes that if he puts money into these Premier League teams, he will reap bigger rewards from it. But that still remains to be seen. But I don't think you should look away from it or judge it as a bad thing yet. You still kind of have to see how that will go. Some transfer rumors to title into this third segment here. We have Arsenal looking to potentially sell Ozil and Sanchez in January. Ozil's position may or may not be there for Germany, especially after qualifying for the World Cup. He may be either disinterested at Arsenal or looking to move somewhere else and gain himself a position. A potential move for him in January might work. I think he has been kind of pushed out of the Arsenal squad a little bit by some of the other talent that's emerged around and how the play style has changed at Arsenal. So potentially selling him in January could be a smart option. Sanchez seems to be like the more obvious one. I know his contract is coming up at the end of the summer, and I don't think he will look to sign an extension. He wanted to leave for Man City before, and now that Chile are not even in the World Cup come summer, I think he's going to be looking at club trophies and winning some big major trophies outside of, the FA Cup. He wants to be in Champions League. He wants to be competing for the Premier League title or another domestic title, and I think he will want to leave, so Arsenal will be looking to sell him and just make some money and not have Sanchez go on a free. So I think both of those are in there. The other big story is Real Madrid looking to get Harry Kane. When you look at Real Madrid's roster, they only seem to have one solid center forward. They do have two on loan. After Alvaro Morata was brought back in from his buyback clause and getting bought back by Real Madrid, sold. Now that just leaves Benzema as the lone striker with a 19-year-old Paraguay forward playing in second division Spain for CD Lugo, and 22-year-old Spanish striker on loan at the second division of Rayo Vallecano. It doesn't look like either of them will be breaking in or playing at the Real Madrid level anytime soon, especially with them being so far down in the table. I think Harry Kane is definitely at that level. They already have Gareth Bale. They already have, even though there is some rumors that Gareth Bale is looking to be sold off sometime soon, especially with some injury problems, he did come. He gave them 2-3 solid years at Real Madrid, and having any hesitation about buying a player from Tottenham doesn't seem to bother Real Madrid, since they've not only bought Gareth Bale from Tottenham, they also bought Luka Modric, who seems to be playing very solidly there. Benzema is 29. He does have some injury problems, and when he goes down, they don't have that center forward, and I don't think their formation will work out well. Now, the other question is, would Tottenham sell him? And I don't know if that would necessarily happen. At least not in January. Tottenham are a team that's not up there as far as financially, same financial tier as Manchester United, Manchester City, or Chelsea. I think they're on the lower end of a tier of the clubs like Liverpool, Arsenal, maybe Everton you could put in there, but they're at the point where they can muster up a challenge. They can hold on to some very good talent as it's emerging, as it's becoming world class. But then at a certain point, you gotta just make your push now. You gotta pick your moments to make a push, and then you gotta sell off your talent and build up for the next push. And I think Tottenham at the end of this season should be looking for that next push. I don't think there's many interest in Lamela. I think Dele Alli has some interest. Harry Kane obviously will have some interest. And depending on how the World Cup goes for Harry Kane and Dele Alli, you could definitely get a higher price for them. But I think this is the last year you can seriously push for a title contention. Obviously, in the summer, you guys had to sell Kyle Walker to Manchester City, and I think that kind of signals the beginning of the end for this push, and you now have to kind of take it on the chin for a couple seasons, build it up again, find some younger talent, find some talent out there that you can afford with this money, that you can bring up, that you can talent, and have a push again in 4 or 5 years being one of those title contenders. I think this year is going to be very difficult, but if you can push it so that you finish top 4 and make the Champions League for next season to get that Champions League money alongside the EPL money, along with selling players off, you can get a young group of talent in there, and you can work your way and develop them, especially with Champions League football. That would be the smart decision. Obviously, I'm not in Tottenham's boardroom. I don't see their books. I don't see what they're looking at. I know their fans would hate. Their fans absolutely hate the idea of that, as any fan would. But anyone who realistically accepts what Tottenham's position is financially should look at that and say, yeah, that's probably the best option right now. Just take 2-3 years on the chin, have a year of Champions League, have some Europa League, develop a new group of players, a new core of players. Keep some of those veterans around who were there for the first push. They can teach them on what happened, what went wrong, and then make your push from there. So the final bit of transfer news before we go finish up with what to look forward to this weekend is former Ballon d'Or winner Ricardo Kaká is leaving Orlando City. He has stated he will not renew his contract at the end of the season and will play the final home game for Orlando City, but not the road game that ends the season officially. And he will also play a friendly in Puerto Rico for charity for the hurricane that hit there. As Orlando City sit 10th out of 11 teams in the East, they're clearly out of playoff pictures, and right now, the most likely destination for him will be back to Sao Paulo with no real interest from Asia as of yet. I don't think with China's new rule, I don't think they're going to go for Kaká. India and Bangladesh, those startup places could potentially fork out some cash to maybe get Kaká out there. But I think the reason he's leaving Orlando City is he wants to be back in Brazil. He wants to play out his final games there. He's leaving on very friendly terms with Orlando City. Orlando City is obviously appreciative. I don't know where this will necessarily leave Orlando City. I know they recently bought Dom Dwyer, brought him back. I think they made him a designated player. So Kaká leaving opens up another designated player, and perhaps Orlando can take that and maybe not go for a big name in retirement since they have a fan base now, but go for a smaller name that can help the team a lot better for their designated player role. Okay, what to look forward to this weekend? For obviously in England, the biggest one is the Liverpool-Manchester United. It is probably one of the biggest games of the weekend. United are looking to keep pace with City as they're tied on 19 points each, only in second place due to goal differential, as well as hold off Tottenham, Chelsea, and Arsenal, who aren't in striking distance yet. But if they make up 3 points this weekend, it would put them well within striking range and a lot closer than Manchester United would like to have them. While currently in 7th place, Liverpool are a point off of the top 4 and shouldn't be looking to drop points this weekend. I would expect a lot closer game, as Liverpool have only really struggled this season with mid to bottom table teams, while United have yet to be tested against anyone in the top half of the table. They drew against 13th place Stoke on the road and beat Southampton 1-0. Southampton sitting in 12th place, obviously. The match will also be at Anfield, which is definitely advantage Liverpool right there. So, you know what? It's never an easy game. It's never one to predict. United Liverpool always is closer, but looking at everything else that's happened so far in the 7 games that have played in the English Premier League so far, expect this to be a lot closer. Liverpool have been challenged. They've beaten Arsenal yet again this season. And they're up there for, playing against the top teams. Manchester City, Tottenham, Chelsea, and Arsenal are all in games that should be wins. Stoke shouldn't be able to stop the Man City win train. Watford are doing surprisingly well. I think they currently sit in 8th place in the table, so they could cause Arsenal some problems, but it should be an Arsenal win. And Crystal Palace should keep that struggle bus going versus Chelsea. And Bournemouth, being in 19th place with 4 points, aren't doing much better and taking on 3rd place Tottenham. All right, moving over to Spain and La Liga, there seems to be one very interesting game coming up with Barcelona traveling to Atletico Madrid. Barcelona has a comfortable lead at the top, 5 points ahead against second place Sevilla, while Atletico are in 4th place, looking to keep that place out of their rivals' hands of Real Madrid. They're separated by 1 point. The other bit of news is there's a lot of politics playing alongside this. There will be no traveling Barcelona fans at the Atletico Madrid. Obviously you have the Catalonia independence problems happening there. It will be interesting to see how Barcelona cope with that. Obviously they got a 3-0 win before the international break. You've got a lot of these Barcelona players going to play for Spain, getting booed, stuff like that. So this will definitely be a difficult game, and Diego Simeone is a very solid defensive coach who will keep this game close. Barcelona seem to do well against Atletico Madrid in La Liga, but struggle in Champions League. Obviously last year they were knocked out by Atletico, so that should definitely be a very difficult game. Or no, 2 years ago, sorry. Serie A has some juicy action in Italy, with second place Juventus taking on 4th place Lazio, as well as 1st place Napoli and 5th place Roma. And then you can also see the diminished former giants of Europe, Inter Milan and AC Milan, taking themselves on. These two are separated by four places and 7 points, but this is never a dull affair, especially when you play in the same stadium. And I mean, both of these teams are spending money now. They're trying to get resurgence. They're trying to get back to their former glory. So don't expect this to be dull either. In France, Paris Saint-Germain will be beating up on 17th place Dijon. Sorry if I pronounce these bad. I've never had any French class in my life. So third place Marseille will be beating up on 19th place Strasbourg. I don't know how to pronounce that either. Monaco sit in second place right now. They have a 3-point lead over Marseille and are 3 points back behind PSG. They are taking on 8th place Lyon, so that will definitely be the only real challenge I can see before the weekend. 4th and 5th place Nantes and Caen will also be trying to make things a little interesting if Monaco lose. Nantes will be playing the once powerhouses of France, Bordeaux, who currently sit in 6th place, and Caen will be playing mid-table Angers. So there is a little bit of excitement going on, even though PSG seem to be running away from the top of the table and could potentially increase that lead. Second place through, I'd say, about 7th or 8th place is definitely an interesting affair to keep a hold of. And in Germany, for those of you not paying attention, Dortmund hope to keep their 5-point gap over Bayern at the top of the table. That is insane. As you know, when you think of Germany, Bayern is it's a foregone conclusion that they're going to win. So things are not looking great for Bayern right now. Although Dortmund need to hold on to that 5-point gap as they take on 4th place Red Bull Leipzig. Hoffenheim, who are currently surprisingly sitting in 3rd, are looking to keep that spot as they take on 6th place Augsburg. And Bayern are going to try and make up some ground this weekend by taking on 15th place Freiburg. Obviously, with teams in the top 4 taking on the lowest place being 6th outside of Bayern, this could be a weekend that Bayern could make up some ground on Dortmund. So that's what's to look forward to. This has been about a 30-minute podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, if you learned some things, and we'll see you guys next week, probably Monday or Tuesday, with the results of the weekend and some more interesting news. So we'll see you guys then. Peace.